So, on Wednesday, I was stewarding in Wimbledon, and one of the hospitality guys who was checking in reserved car parking while I was doing staff car parking was talking about the news with me, saying he started to distrust the mainstream media and news channels and has stopped watching TV for the most part. I agreed, saying it's for the best. I haven't watched TV out of leisure in years, preferring to get my content online where there is much more choice, and began listing sources to my friend. Then a bell rang in my mind, probably from watching the YouTuber Worth of Buy too much, and decided to make a video detailing the most reliable independent news sources on YouTube that I've watched. But I'll state this, there is a harsh ideological bias towards anyone who fits into the quote-unquote right-wing category. However, the problem we're facing is that anyone on the left wing can call anyone they disagree with a right-wing Nazi and then smear them. This is even scarier when you look at companies like Google and YouTube who heavily favour the left and go out of their way not to promote anything on the right and even censor people they believe to be on the right, despite being a platform, not a damn publisher. This happens all the time. Even the alien Mark Zuckerberg, head of Facebook, is trying to censor people based on politics and even trying to censor them based on their making fun of him for looking like a pale alien, despite saying to the US politicians that he is a platform.
Mr. Zuckerberg, does Facebook consider itself a neutral public forum?
Senator, we consider ourselves to be a platform for all ideas.
Let me ask the question again. Does Facebook consider itself to be a neutral public forum? And representatives of your company have given conflicting answers on this. Are you a First Amendment speaker expressing your views, or are you a neutral public forum allowing everyone to speak?
Senator, here's how we think about this.
He just can't answer yes or no, can he? Oh my lord.
Senator, I think that there are a number of things that we would all agree are clearly bad. Foreign interference in our elections, terrorism, self-harm.
Those are about censorship.
Well, I think that you would probably agree that we should remove terrorist propaganda from the service. So that, I agree, I think is clearly bad activity that we want to get down, and we're generally proud of how well we do at that. Now, what I can say, and I do want to get this in before the end here, is that I am very committed to making sure that Facebook is a platform for all ideas. That is a very important founding principle of what we do. We're proud of the discourse and the different ideas that people can share on the service, and that is something that, as long as I'm running the company, I'm going to be committed to making sure is the case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz.
I don't think he realised he just contradicted himself. Yes, if you censor people who are extremists, terrorists, whatever, that is censorship. Facebook does not have the right to censor anyone. We live in a day and age where the big tech giants we rely on for most of our life's conveniences are censoring the information that we consume. That definitely will go well, won't it? I work all around the UK and meet people who are oblivious to alternative news because all they believe there is out there is the mainstream media. And despite most of these people learning history at school in their teens and beyond, learning about propaganda used by the Nazis and Soviets, they are for the most part oblivious to it happening to them now because, oh, the mainstream media or the modern progressive left is for freedom, we can trust them, which is absolute bollocks. The huge platforms and companies such as Twitter, YouTube and Google, Facebook, and to a lesser extent Amazon are all openly on the left, with the latter being the least subjective. Simply put, people need to find alternative news sources that you can trust, independent ones. But how do you do that if a search platform like Google or YouTube censors them? Well, if you found this video, it means that the big tech companies haven't noticed me, senpai. I'm just a baby YouTuber after all who just logged onto his computer and realised that he reached his yearly target of 100 subs with 6 months to spare and will now be making more content, more often, that you should share, like and subscribe to. And the reason I'm just covering new YouTubers is just because I find it easier when information is being spoke to me and evidence is shown in the description. The latter of which isn't the case of things like ITV News, BBC News, CNN, etc. It's the same appeal that the mainstream media has dominated for most of television history until the internet started to steal the mantle, which explains why the mainstream media tries to smear YouTubers all the time. So here's what I believe to be the most reliable sources of world news on YouTube. Now when people talk about reliable and unbiased news, people will usually cite Philip DeFranco as one of the biggest and most reliable people. But I would have to disagree with that because he has had a bias towards Google, dismissing the Project Veritas video that YouTube censored for exposing them. Despite this, Philip does indeed talk about everything and does his best to remain objective with his videos. But he is not the most in-depth with certain topics, most notably politics, probably because he wants to keep his livelihood. And that is where I will mention Tim Pool, who I believe to be the most in-depth independent news source on YouTube. The problem is that most of the mainstream media sources know this and continuously try to slander the guy and smear him as a right-winger, which he's not. If anything, he's centrist. But you know how I feel about the dismissiveness of the political spectrum. People assume that if they can put you on a spectrum, they automatically know who you are, what you think, and why you do it, which is absurd. If you want to know someone's perspective, you open a discourse with them. Don't label them and slander them, you bigots. Now, if you're looking for someone with a bit more subjectiveness, but still the same level of information and value as Tim Pool, Computing Forever is just that. He's similar to Tim Pool in that he talks about various topics in depth, including the rounds that are controversial. But you will notice his bias towards quote-unquote right-wing ideals, and that isn't a bad thing. Not every ideal on the right is bad, not every ideal on the left is good, and this Irish geezer is heavily against censorship and advertises free speech platforms such as Gab and Minds, which could replace the mainstream alternatives one day, fingers crossed if they don't fix up. Now, if you're looking for controversy, or controversy, however the hell you pronounce it, there is no greater reliable source than Sargon of Akkad, aka Carl Benjamin. Now, he focuses a bit more on British politics, but he does delve into other politics. He's a member of UKIP and heavily scrutinises the left. You can assume how well that went for him. Now, whilst he's a lot less subjective than the ones prior, he's a brilliant source of information and topics, both philosophical and ideological. He criticises all sides of the spectrum, mostly the left, because the right is pretty much demonised everywhere nowadays, and because of the fact that he's very political, it can put people off. However, if you are looking for information, he is one of the best sources out there. But in hindsight, politics is not the only thing people want to know. Well, lads and ladettes, I've got a few for you. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. I present ReviewTechUSA, one of the first YouTubers I ever subscribed to. He does a lot of entertainment stuff, particularly gaming and tech news, but also delves into movies, shows, entertainment, business news, etc. He is subjective a lot of the time, but he does do his best to state all sides to every story, which is rare nowadays, and whilst he has made mistakes in the past, he, unlike most, will admit his wrongdoings and will try to remedy them in the future. Another one I'd recommend is Optimus, who does less gaming than ReviewTechUSA but balances his content out with other news and talks about it in a very good way. Similar to ReviewTechUSA, he does give a subjective opinion a lot of the time, and I must say speaking from opinions is not necessarily a bad thing if you do give an objective take as well. But he is pretty good for news and information on various topics, despite appearing slightly immature. Sure, he's a young buck, but he's got a good head on his shoulders. Give him a go. If you're looking for someone a bit more mature, but less entertaining, TheQuartering is very much for you. He covers everything, even being one of the main people to call out Philip DeFranco for being dishonest and ignorant about Google censorship. He's what I call a jack of all trades, covering everything, but not being the best at any particular one. This is not a bad thing, like Philip DeFranco, he fills me in on everything happening. But he is a lot more opinionated and unscripted than Phil, but because of that, more trustworthy. You pick which one you prefer. He's not as quick and to the point as Tim Pool, but if you need to break from topics just purely politics, give TheQuartering a go. But let's say you don't want any entertainment or gaming. Let's say you want pure, unbiased politics. And let's go a step further and say you solely want politics based in Britain. No, not you, Sargon, you're not objective enough. But TLDR News is. TLDR News is almost completely unbiased, focusing on giving pure unaltered information regarding British politics. They have made their name known for it thanks to their coverage of Brexit, being the best at giving all information with great efficiency. And they've also recently announced a US page coming soon, so Yanks, beware. They are the closest to being what the mainstream news, such as ITV, CNN, BBC, etc., claim that they are trying to be. Give them a listen. But in hindsight, maybe you like purely tech and gaming news. Well then, the best source of news is going to be YongYea. He talks about gaming in depth, but is not afraid to talk about the business and law sides to gaming, covering the microtransaction problem extensively, promoting good business practices, and giving those that practice them the props that they deserve. In my eyes, if you want gaming, news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned for YongYea. He will see you guys next time. Yong Owls. Now, there are quite a few other channels I haven't mentioned that give quite good information and value, but they are not necessarily news channels. I'll list a few. Vegan Gains, is one who promotes veganism as well as talking about morals, media and drama. Geeks and Gamers for more quick unscripted takes on various media subjects. Think TheQuartering but faster and more entertaining. Young Ripper 59 if you need more rational ideological discourse from a dark-skinned bloke with credibility to shut the radical leftists that label you as a Nazi up. Stefan Molyneux if you're looking for healthy conservative ideals. No, he's not far right like Google suggests. And that Star Wars girl if you need proof that there are women out there who aren't NPCs. By the way, rest in peace to her little sister. My heart is with you and your family, my dear. But I have laid out the foundations for you to escape the mental plantation that some of these mainstream media companies want us to fall into. And hopefully, with these sources, you will be able to make your own mind up instead of having them made up for you. No one source can be 100% trusted. Gather your own information from various sources, pick the sense out of the nonsense, and then come to your own conclusions. Hope you're all good out there, and in hindsight, I will see you in the next one. Cheers.